If, in a life or death moment, you see a gentle light calling you, but behind you your family is still waiting, would you choose to go or to stay? Dawn in the hospital. The siren of an ambulance tore through the silent night. A vehicle sped into the courtyard of Boston City Hospital. Inside, Emily Parker, 29 years old, her face pale, cold sweat pouring down her forehead, was lying on a stretcher. She clutched her belly, her breathing rapid, tears streaming down her cheeks from the stabbing pain. "Hold on, Emily, we're here." Her husband's voice, Michael, choked in her ear. He gripped her hand tightly, his face ashen, filled with both fear and despair. Emily was pregnant with their first child, in her 8th month. Everything had been normal until sudden, violent pain struck, blood soaking her white nightgown. Michael panicked and called for an ambulance, his heart nearly stopping as he watched his wife gasp for breath. The hospital corridor glared under fluorescent lights. The stench of antiseptic hung heavily in the air. The loudspeaker called urgently for doctors. All of it blended into a chaotic symphony, making Michael feel as if he were trapped in a nightmare. "We need immediate surgery." "The hemorrhaging is severe." The ER doctor spoke quickly, his eyes tense. Emily was rushed into the operating room. The doors closed. Michael was left outside, his trembling hands pressed against the wall, his ears filled only with the pounding of his own heartbeat, like hammer blows. In the operating room, harsh white light poured down. Emily lay motionless, her breath faint, the cold metallic scent of surgical instruments filling her nostrils. The monitor beeped steadily, each sound like a knife, cutting into the minds of the doctors and nurses. "We're losing blood fast. Prepare a transfusion immediately," the lead surgeon ordered. Emily's eyes flickered open in a haze, her brown eyes blurred. For a fleeting moment, she thought of the baby not yet born, of Michael waiting outside, of dreams unfinished. Fear crashed over her, squeezing her chest. "Please, my baby," she whispered, her voice fragile. All sounds around her faded away. The machines, the doctors, the hurried footsteps on the floor, everything dissolved. Emily felt her body grow cold, each finger, each breath slipping beyond her control. Then, everything sank into darkness. On the other side, a strange sensation swept over her. Emily heard the sound of wind whispering, gentle as a lullaby. She opened her eyes and gasped when she saw herself standing above the operating table. Her body still lay there, doctors scrambling, crimson blood spreading across the white sheet, but she herself, whole, radiant, free of pain. Emily raised her hand to look. Her hand was translucent, glowing softly. A warm beam of light shone down from the ceiling, drawing her upward. She was stunned, both terrified and captivated. Is that me?" she asked herself, her voice echoing in the void. In that light, Emily suddenly saw the image of a vast field of flowers, blazing with the purple of lavender. A gentle voice whispered, "Do not fear, Emily. You are not alone." She had no time to understand what was happening, but her heart felt a peace she had never known. Journey in the light. Emily found herself floating in a vast emptiness, weightless as if her body no longer carried any gravity. Below, the scene in the operating room remained in chaos. Doctors pressing on her chest, nurses rushing blood transfusions, the monitor beeping frantically, beep, 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 before stretching into one long, continuous sound. Her heart had stopped, and yet Emily no longer felt pain or panic. On the contrary, she felt a strange serenity. All the shouting, the machines, the footsteps, gradually faded, like sounds drowned beneath water. Before her, a pure white light opened up, shining like the sky at dawn. It did not blind her, but embraced her warmly, like comforting arms. It beckoned, gently, like a promise of a place without suffering. Emily was drawn toward it. She took steps, though she did not need to step. She drifted, closer and closer to the light. Suddenly, the scenery changed. She was no longer in the hospital, but standing in a boundless field covered with pale lavender blossoms. A soft breeze blew, carrying sweet fragrance through the air. Golden sunlight spread wide, touching each petal, making them shimmer as if gilded. Emily reached out to touch a sprig. Her translucent fingers slipped through the petals, yet she still felt a tender vibration, like faint music. "Where is this?" she asked herself, her voice echoing in the stillness. Then she heard footsteps. Emily turned, and her heart clenched when she saw a familiar figure, her mother, Anne, who had passed away 3 years earlier from cancer. She was just as before, silver hair flowing, kind blue eyes, a warm smile that had comforted her throughout childhood. "Emily," her mother's voice rang, gentle and intimate like the nights she sang lullabies. Emily burst into tears, sobs breaking free. She rushed to embrace her mother, but her arms passed through that radiant figure. Even so, she clearly felt warmth, a breath of love surrounding her. "I miss you so much, Mom," Emily choked. Anne placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, eyes brimming with love. "I know, my child. But you cannot stay here yet. You still have a man who loves you deeply, and a child waiting to be held in your arms." Emily shook her head, tears streaming. "I'm so tired, Mom. I feel exhausted. It's so peaceful here. I don't want to return to that place of pain." Anne smiled sadly. "This peace is for the very end, not now. Your journey is not yet finished. You still must teach, still must love, still must live fully." The lavender field slowly faded, giving way to a long corridor bathed in white light. Emily heard strange sounds, like a distant choir, resonant and unending, making her soul tremble yet drawn in. She stepped into the corridor, where transparent walls reflected memories of her life. Each fragment appeared, 6-year-old Emily running on the grass, her father waving and smiling. The moment Emily first met Michael in a university lecture hall, their shy yet glowing eyes. The simple wedding, a pure white dress, their first kiss under the rain. The instant she discovered she was pregnant, radiant joy in both their eyes. Emily touched each memory, her heart aching. "Can you leave all this behind?" a voice echoed in her mind. The light at the end of the corridor blazed brighter, beckoning her forward. Emily saw a vast expanse of radiance, indescribably beautiful. There she felt absolute safety, an infinite love beyond words. She wanted to step into it. Her whole soul longed to dive into that brilliance. But then an image appeared. Michael sitting outside the operating room, eyes red, hands trembling as he prayed. And above all, she saw the unborn child, tiny, fragile, yet glowing brightly within her heart. Emily froze. "You must choose." Her mother's gentle voice came from behind. Emily's heart trembled. She knew this moment would decide everything. The decision to return. Emily stood still in the corridor of light. On one side was eternal peace, where there was no pain, no tears. On the other side was a world full of hardship, but where love remained, where responsibilities awaited, where the laughter of those she cherished still lingered. Her heart cracked. "Mom, I don't know what to do." Emily trembled, her voice breaking like a lost child. Anne stepped closer, her eyes overflowing with love. "My daughter, heaven is always here waiting for you. But if you go now, Michael will forever lose the light of his life. That child will grow up never hearing the lullaby of a mother." Emily closed her eyes. A flood of memory rushed back. She saw Michael kneeling by the cradle, placing his hand on her rounded belly, whispering, "My love, say hello to your mother. She has sacrificed so much to bring you into this world. I promise to protect both of you for the rest of my life." That voice echoed, overflowing with love and the fear of loss. Tears streamed down Emily's translucent face. She looked up at the light at the end of the corridor, beckoning her, then back at her mother's gentle face. "Mom, I want to stay here. Here there is no pain, no fear. I'm so tired." Anne squeezed her hand softly, a sad smile hidden in her bright eyes. "But love is not only peace, Emily. Love is also the fight. It is the acceptance of pain in order to give happiness. You can stay here and rest, but you will miss the moment of hearing your child's first cry. You will miss Michael's embrace when he learns his wife has survived. Are you ready to give up all of that?" Emily trembled. Her heart raced, though her body had already ceased to function. Suddenly, she heard a faint cry, like a voice calling from afar. At first it was soft, then grew clearer, echoing through the space. "Emily, you must live. I need you." It was Michael. His voice was broken by sobs, mixed with desperate prayers. For a brief instant, Emily saw the image of him collapsed against the operating room door, his hands clenched so tightly they bled. Emily broke down in tears. She felt an invisible thread binding her heart to his, cutting through distance, cutting through the boundary between life and death. "Mom, I want to go back," Emily sobbed. Anne smiled, her eyes shimmering. "That is my daughter." The moment Emily said those words, the lavender field, the corridor of light, and her mother's figure all began to fade. A powerful force seized her, pulling her violently backward. The white light narrowed into a single path, like a long, endless tunnel. She fell, faster and faster, breathless. In the vortex, Emily heard her heartbeat slowly return. Thump, thump, thump. She screamed, in both agony and release, and suddenly... In the operating room, the doctors were nearly in despair. Emily's heart had stopped too long. A nurse shook her head slightly, eyes brimming with tears. Outside, Michael was still crying, unaware that time was running out. "One more time," the doctor shouted, pressing down with all his strength. "Beep, beep, beep." The monitor sounded, at first slow, then steadily stronger. The green line on the screen flickered again, each pulse marking a heartbeat revived. A collective sigh of relief broke out in the room. Nurses burst into tears. The doctor sank to his knees, sweat soaking his back. "She's back," he whispered. On the operating table, Emily's eyelids fluttered. Unconsciously, tears slid down her cheeks. She had returned. Return in loving arms. A piercing light pressed through her tightly shut eyelids. Emily groaned softly, her chest aching as if it had been crushed. The sting of a needle in her hand, the steady beeping of machines, and the strong smell of antiseptic seeped into every breath. She opened her eyes. The hospital ceiling gleamed white, blurred at first, then slowly in focus. "Emily." Oh God, Emily. The familiar voice jolted her heart. She turned and saw Michael, his face gaunt, eyes bloodshot from too many tears. He held her hand tightly, trembling as if letting go meant losing her forever. His tears fell, soaking the back of her hand. "You came back. I thought I'd lost you. I don't know how I could live without you." Emily smiled faintly, tears sliding down her cheeks. She had no strength for many words, only whispered, "I heard you calling. It was you who pulled me back." Michael broke into sobs, clutching her hand, kissing her thin fingers again and again. Hours later, a clear, pure cry rang through the recovery room. A nurse carried over a tiny newborn, fragile and red yet full of life, placing it into Emily's arms. "Congratulations, she made it through," the doctor said with a deep, emotional smile. Emily gazed at the baby, her eyes blurred with tears. The child's warmth spread from her chest, seeping into every corner of her heart. She gently touched the tiny hand that curled around her finger. "Hello, my love. It's Mommy." Her voice trembled, mingling a smile with sobs. Michael stood beside her, his arms encircling both mother and child. He pressed his forehead against Emily's, whispering, "You are my miracle. Both of you are my miracles." That night, in the quiet hospital room, Emily watched her baby sleeping in her arms. The faint scent of milk, the soft breathing of the child, was like a tender lullaby. She closed her eyes, and the memory of the lavender field, the corridor of light, and her mother's smiling face returned. The pain, the fear, the longing for rest were still there, but now they were replaced by another force, love. Emily whispered in her heart, "Mother, I understand now. Love is not only comfort and peace, but also the courage to fight in order to stay. I will live for my child, for Michael, and for all those I love." Tears came again, but this time they were tears of happiness. When dawn broke, pale golden light streamed into the hospital room. Emily felt different. Every breath, every heartbeat was infinitely precious. She knew she had just crossed the boundary between life and death, carrying with her an invaluable gift, the realization of life's true worth. She turned toward Michael, who had fallen asleep by the bed after a sleepless night. Looking at him, looking at their child, Emily's heart overflowed with a silent vow. From now on, I will live every moment fully, not just for myself, but for all of us. And so, Emily's near-death journey closed with a new beginning, the beginning of a life seen with new eyes, treasuring every second, every embrace, every smile. She had returned, not as someone who had defeated death, but as a soul reborn. The moment between life and death changed Emily forever. And you? If you were in that situation, what would you choose? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more stories that touch the heart.